So hi everyone, my name is Raina. I am a master's student at McGill, and a lot of my work focuses on looking at the neural mechanisms of learning and memory. And in particular, I'm looking at comparing the brain regions that are involved in learning from trial and error, so direct experience, versus learning from observation, so seeing someone else do something and then taking that information and then applying it at a different time. And to study these neural mechanisms, I work with a system, I work with a species of fish that is tropical and freshwater and super small. They're about this big, called the Trinidadian guppy. And ever since I've started my program and I've started talking to people about some of my research, the question that I get over and over again is, out of all the things that you could do in a lab, why would you study something as complex as learning in a species like fish? And this is a question that I get over and over again, and from all sorts of different people, from people who don't have a science background at all, to the people who work across the hall in the lab across from me. So that's why that was what I wanted to address today. And so, why do you study fish? There's two ways to interpret that question. The first one is pretty self-indulgent, as in, why do I personally study fish? And the answer to that one is really simple. I've always been really fascinated by marine and aquatic systems. I wanted to be a marine biologist for a really long time growing up. And then when I went to college, my parents paid for part of my tuition, and they said, you need to major in something that will get you a job later. So joke's on them, I majored in neuroscience, and here we are. But basically for me, this is just a way to find a roundabout way to study a system that I'm interested in within the context of neuroscience. Of course, the more interesting question is, why do scientists study fish behavior and fish cognition, and what can we gain, what can science gain from studying this system? And usually when people ask me this question, they follow up with, if you're going to study something like learning, why don't you study people? Or, some people study monkeys, why don't you do that? Or even, why don't you study mice or rats? And I think this comes from a lot of misconceptions about animal cognition, and maybe misconceptions about, or just how we think about differences in animal intelligence across species. And as someone who's worked with fish day in and day out, I can say that fish can be kind of dumb, but also, I'm kind of dumb too sometimes. So it doesn't mean that we can't gain anything interesting from studying them. So I created a thing that I wanted to use to basically introduce the idea of using fish as a way to study cognition, and show that the ecology of this species, or the way that they've adapted or evolved to be able to live and survive in their environment, that's what makes them interesting to study. So I'll just pull this up. So I made, it's in a bit of a comic style, as Christian said. And also, I have them in 5 panels, so I guess I'll show them one by one. I'm just going to see if there's a way to full screen.
I think if you just click on the green.
Thank you. Should be okay. So I don't know if I should read it or if I should just go through it, but here we go.
Can you give it a funny voice?
Okay, so, hello, I'm a guppy. I live with my friends and family in tropical paradise. This is just my voice, but I guess it's funny enough. Life may be tough for a small fry like me. I share information and learn from other fish about the best places to eat and how not to be eaten. I've impressed scientists with the way I share knowledge with my social network. This process is called social learning, and this is actually based on a study that was done about guppy social networks and how different individuals share information with each other. And it's a skill that helps me survive in the wild, and it's evolved in guppies over millions of years. Even though my brain is really, really tiny, I make decisions, learn, and remember every day. In fact, it works a lot like yours. So how do I choose my soulmates and decide who to trust? How do I learn to recognize dangerous situations? Which part of my brain do I use when I learn from my friends? I work with scientists in my home and in the lab to answer these questions and more. So yeah, with this comic, I just wanted to convey the idea that we can learn a lot of interesting things from studying unconventional species. For me, because I'm interested in questions of sociality and social learning, and guppies are adapted to be a very social species, it seems like a good fit to answer these questions. But of course, like different animals are experts in different types of behaviors. So I think it's really important to match like an appropriate study species to your question, and and sometimes that can be quite an unconventional species. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I was inspired to make this based on some other like scientific comics that I found, but I've like made all the illustrations and stuff, and like I want some feedback on like the content and stuff, but I also don't really know how I want to lay it out. I like threw this together like pretty recently, so if you guys have any comments or feedback on how to like best put it all together, I'd love to hear it, and that's it for me for now. Thank you.